Hello everyone, Trophy Wine Hunter. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is going to be a really interesting review. So one part of this is reviewing this wine, which is the Domaine Ponsot 2007 Clos de la Roche in Magnum format. So that's a spectacular review and really exciting. But the other part of this is I'm doing a wine which is a little bit unusual for me, which is suspect. So I'll tell you the reason why. I did buy this at auction. I won't name the auction house that I bought it at. And then subsequently, I was looking to sell this wine with another auction house. And that auction house actually declined this. They didn't tell me why. So perhaps there's some provenance issues. And so that gives me some, very rarely do I doubt a wine. But this is a wine that is probably one of the most faked wines in the world. And we'll go through the history and then we'll go through the process of trying to figure out whether this is in fact a legitimate wine. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to try and contact the winery and see if they can authenticate this bottle, and I'll tell them kind of the details, and we'll also taste this wine and see if we think it is authentic or not. But this is it doesn't normally happen. I'm fairly when I buy wines I normally buy from HDH Wine Auction House in Chicago. I'm very, very familiar with their wines. They have a very good provenance and I trust their wines. I've never had a suspect bottle from them. This was from another auction house, and I don't buy as much from, so that has given me some food for thought, and that's probably why I go to HDH a lot more, because I do trust their bottles. Let's talk a little bit about this winery. So Domaine Ponsot is one of the most famous Burgundy producers in the world. They produce both red and white wine. They're mostly known for their red wines. Their white wine, they've got a famous one called Morey-Saint-Denis Blanc. It's a premier cru called Clos Monts Luisants, and it's one of the only premier Grand Cru Burgundy white wines made from the Aligoté grape. Of course, most white wines in the Burgundy region are made from the Chardonnay grape. For their red wines, they're most famous for their Clos St, and then also this wine, the Clos de la Roche. And they were made infamous by a wine frauder called Rudy Canaron. He's very famous, and you can see a movie on all the Netflix or whatever called Sour Grapes, and that goes through his story. But essentially, Rudy Canaron appeared in the wine auction scene, bought a lot of wines, was a ridiculously great blind taster. So he bought a lot of wines, and then he started selling wines, so people just believed he had all these wines. And in 2011, he's consigned to one of the auction houses, Acromero Condit, a huge selection of Domaine Ponsot wines, including the 1945, 49, 59, 62, 64, 66, and 71, and 78 Clos St, along with the 1929 Clos de la Roche. And these are just like magnificent wines that no one's ever seen. And how he got outed was that at that time Laurent Ponsot, who owned Domaine Ponsot, kind of saw that they always are interested in old wines from their winery, and Domaine did not estate bottle their wines prior to 1934. So it would be kind of impossible to have a 1929 wine. They never bottled it. They always drank it internally. So, and in fact, the Clos St, they only started manufacturing the wines since 1982. So again, it was not possible to have all these older wines. And so Laurent actually contacted the the auction house, and told them, hey, these are fake wines. You cannot sell them. And he was smart enough to not trust them, so he actually flew over to New York to the auction, sat in the back. The auction house did list the wines. He stood up famously and said, don't sell these wines, these are not my wines. Took him out of the auction. Next day, met Rudy and wanted to figure out whether he was just like duped by other people or he was the guy. Rudy gave him all this story. he tracked down everything, figured out Rudy was lying, and that's what put Rudy into jail. So that's why he's famous. Ironically, Laurent Ponsot has now left Domaine Ponsot, but we'll get into that story later on. Domaine Ponsot was established in 1872 by William Ponsot. It was given to him by his father. And most of that time period between 1872 and 1934, they really were producing wines for their own use, just internally. And that's why, you know, they didn't produce in 1929 Clos de la Roche. So they only started to commercially bottle in 1934. And at that time, they were estate bottling, which was a rarity, and they also began to sell wines outside of France at that time to the United States, which probably led to its notoriety and popularity. Then it was passed on to Hipplyte Ponsot, and he ran it till 1957 when he passed the domain to his son, Jean-Marie Ponsot, who is the former mayor of Morey-Saint-Denis. So they're a very famous family in Morey-Saint-Denis. They were very big holdings there. In 1981, Laurent Ponsot, who is Jean-Marie's son, started to work for the domain and then took over the winemaking until 1983. And he was the winemaker there until 2017. There was a family dispute, don't know what happened, but he left, and now his sister, Rosemary, is the sole proprietor. And Laurent Ponsot has now went off to produce his own wines under Laurent Ponsot, which I also buy. I'm very excited about his wines. He probably doesn't have as good estates, but he's a killer winemaker, knows a lot about Burgundy, really knowledgeable guy, and a protector of the Burgundy. And so I still think his wines are probably underappreciated because people think, well, you lost all these great estates, but he's still a great winemaker. He still knows how to make wine. He still knows how to pick wineries. So arguably also Domaine Ponsot has lost, they've got great holdings. They've lost a great winemaker. And of course, winemakers can be replaced, but a legend like Laurent, who's worked in the winery or the estate for 30 years and knows it so well, that's a great loss. And who knows what the squabble was or the disagreement was, but in my mind, probably I would prefer to buy older Ponsot rather than newer Ponsot. And and I would buy Laurent Ponsot's winery, and as I have done over the last couple of years. So what makes Domaine Ponsot special, and Clos de la Roche in particular, or anything that they have in Clos St, is that they are the largest landholder of Clos de la Roche. So originally Clos de la Roche was about only 4 hectares. They own 3 of those hectares. And then I think Dujac owns the other hectare. Over the years, the area of Clos de la Roche has expanded to almost 13 hectares. So arguably the new expansion is really not Grand Cru Vineyard sites and not really Clos de la Roche. So that's kind of the old school thinking, that really the only people that produce a legitimate Clos de la Roche wines are Ponsot and Dujac. They produce about 1,000 cases of this wine. And again, it's one of the most sought after wines in the world, and one of the most counterfeited wines in the world, because when you get, I have had a Clos de la Roche, probably haven't had the experience as much as I haven't drank enough Clos de la Roche, but it is one of these amazing wines that ages endlessly and is just beautiful, and probably rivals wines like DRC and Liwa. So especially Clos de la Roche. 2007 was not the best year in Burgundy. The spring, that means February and March, were good, and the summer part, April, was good, and then they had pretty miserable weather for the rest of the summer, the late spring, summer, until early September, when it was much better. So that seemed to save the vintage. So in general, I think it was a decent vintage. The knock on 2007 is maybe it's not as long lived as some of the other great classic vintages, but that's fine because Burgundy wines can last for so long. Clos Roche can last for so long. So right now, 2007, which is 16 years, for a spectacular vintage might be young. For a vintage like 07, might be a great vintage. And plus you've got a Magnum. So it could be really spectacular. Let's talk about a couple of the counterfeit measures. Since Ponsot has been counterfeit so much, Laurent Ponsot had put in a lot of different counterfeit measures in here. And so this is why this bottle is kind of, and I'll close up on the bottle, but is perhaps a little suspect. So they do have a proof tag process, but on this bottle it's kind of scratched out a bit, which could be a problem. That might be a sign. I'm gonna probably talk to the winery and see if they have this code in their system. There is a little bit of leakage on the bottle. And then they also have on the side of the bottle this dot thing that's printed, which seems to be a little bit, I wouldn't say doctored, but a little bit not perfect. So that's probably a couple of the reasons why this wine was not accepted by HDH for auction, re-auction by me. So I guess I had no choice but to drink it. So that's what I'm gonna do and see how it goes. Here is the bottle of Clos de la Roche. So again, the label is not perfect, but that's not really a sign of problems. There are a couple of signs. As you can see, this is the bubble code. Now, one of the problems with the bubble code is you'll see, I'll try and bring it into a better light, but you'll see it's a little bit scratched out. So it's not great. So there is a code, and when I try to scan this QR code, it doesn't work. And then you can see a little bit of sediment or things, I don't know what that is, on the bottle. The other thing is that Domaine Ponsot didn't start this type of proof tagging until 2008. So this is the 2007 vintage, so I guess they could have done that. Here is the other thing that is a bit of concern. So this is normal for Ponsot. So they have this thing that says if, which is very neat, they have a dot printed in white here, and if it turns gray, that means it's being exposed to high temperature. Only looks like the label is not perfect. There are other proof tagging things that Ponsot does. One of them, and it could have been that this is an older bottle, but normally on the bottle, they have Domaine Ponsot actually etched into the bottle. I don't see it on this bottle. And so that is of a little bit of a concern. So here's my update on the authentication process. So I went to prooftag.com and then put in my code from the Domaine Ponsot bottle. And then it goes to this page. And then you can see that actually it confirms it is a Ponsot Clos de la Roche 2007 in Magnum format. And when you go to the bubble tag, that matches, at least from the best of my knowledge, what is on the bottle. So for me, that authenticates the bottle. So let's taste the wine, and I'm here at Blue Ghost Winery. You can see it's such a beautiful setting. If you have a chance to get out here, if you're from BC, really take advantage. This is an exceptional winery, and it's just, as you can see, beautiful. So I tasted this wine with the winemaker, Stacy Harneman here, and my general manager, Michael Abbott, along with a number of my friends, and I'm pretty sure this is not a fake bottle. It's exceptional. So tasted it last night. Let's taste it again now. What strikes you on this is the oak influence. There is some oxidation on this wine. It's 2007, but it's drinking beautifully right now. The flavors, you get dark, intense, dark berries, raspberries, blueberries, plums, and then you get a kind of almost a gravelly, dirt, earth type aroma to it, like soil, and maybe slight hints of minerality. First thing it strikes you is the great structure of this wine. It's great body. You know, one thing with kind of cheaper Burgundy wines, they taste very tart to me, and really all it is cherry. That's nothing like this here. It's got really good body, heavier tannin structure, but not so heavy that the tannin is outstanding. Just enough structure to make it a kind of a very, not a light wine. So it's not light in any way. It supports all the dark fruits that it has, but then on the end it's got a little bit of earthiness, maybe a little bit of herbs, and then some tobacco leaves. So the intensity of this wine is really nice, but it's also very balanced and very smooth. It just sings through your palate. And again, I think this is what differentiates really top-end Burgundy wines from kind of more value Burgundies. Value Burgundies are generally very light in flavor and light in body and short aftertaste and very tart. Clos de Roche here, heavier body, good tannin structure, good balance, long aftertaste, and mostly that long aftertaste and body supports the fruit a lot. So you get a lot of dark fruit, and then it allows the aftertaste, the long aftertaste allows you to taste different flavors like herbs and kind of tobacco on this. I like this wine. It's a very nice example of Clos de Roche. To me, it's 94 points, and I think it's in its drinking window. It's perfect right now. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Until next time, happy drinking.